should be connecting up to go live. And I believe we are live now. So hopefully we are in much better shape and that you all are able to see me now. I hope that we will just wait a couple minutes and hopefully you guys will find us. Yay, there you are. Good. I have a little bit of yes, there you are. I can see your chats now and everything, so that's some good news. Yay! So I'm gonna give it a couple minutes and we'll shoot the breeze before we get going too much so some people can find the stream. True. Few mistakes and, well, what is life when you're just trying to figure things out? So I thought while we get going, we are, which by the way, everybody, well, I know it's only a couple of us so far, but who have found the stream since the first one didn't work right. Hi, Shauna. Attila's our best companion here, so helping me out and possibly might be able to get us the link to shoot out. It'll get there. So I thought I would have fun because I really enjoy coffee and all kinds of equipment, and I'm a crazy person who gets down in the weeds and always takes everything like 3 steps too far. So tonight I thought what I would do is I would go through some really simple basics on some things, and then we can do more in the future and show different equipment. Yay, shenanigans. Hey, Hungry. Good to see you guys on. Sorry, my coffee smells so good. So I have a right here, and I know you can't see, just so you guys know, I'm working on a lot of stuff. We're gonna work on getting a camera where we can zoom in and so you can see things, and also we're hoping to have lights by tonight so that it was not quite so reflective, and also you would be able to see things a little bit better, but hasn't quite delivered yet. Okay, so the warden will be here soon, and I see, hello, Mary, and of course we've got Renee and Hoofinette, so woohoo! But this one is, honestly, I think it's just going to reflect too much and you won't be able to really see it. This is Silverbridge coffee. These are a Columbus. Hey, 2 crazy ketos, awesome. Long time no talk. So this is a local brewer here in Columbus, Ohio. They have a distribution with a few grocery chains that have just started, and they also have online ordering, but their coffee is really good, and they are small batch roasters, so not a mass producer. So that's why they're a little bit smaller in their distribution, and but everything I've tried for them has been really good, although I will tell you that Highland Grog is super, super, super potent and will stink up your devices for days, so it really needs like its own special brewer. So that's Silverbridge coffee, and I just like to talk about my local people. They are top-notch. The woman is an owner, and they do all kinds of cool stuff. So this is a Sumatra blend. It's not what I'm having tonight. We are actually going to make a coffee here in a few minutes, but I'll talk about coffee stuff first. So that's the Silverbridge Sumatra. And I actually have so many things here that you can barely move on my giant table. So I'm going to move some of it off to the side as we go and worry about it later. The other flavor I have from Silverbridge is called Moffman Blend. And it is a fantastic deep dark roast. It is so good. If you like dark coffees, this is a great one to pitch in. Look for a Moffman. We'll get there. Maybe it'll be inappropriate, maybe not. Who can say? But since it's unpredictable where conversation goes, I thought it would be better to, yeah. it'd be better to err on the side of caution. I know myself, so just how it is. So, but the Moffman Blend is really good. And I will tell you that I buy whole bean coffee. And even though I sometimes get all worked up a bit, there is no wrong way to enjoy coffee. Coffee is like so many other things. It's your personal taste. What one person thinks is the best coffee ever, another person will want to spit it in the trash and give up coffee forever. So even though it's a lot of contention, especially when you get around a lot of coffee aficionados, where they will argue their case for every type of coffee and every type of method there is no wrong way to enjoy your coffee. I like to rate my coffees as in my very, very favorite, and then I like to then go down by brewing method to this is my Sunday evening and I can treat myself because I had a hard week, to hey, Rand Can Cook, nice to see you on. To then it's the morning and I need my goddamn coffee. You better bring it to me right now before I have to talk to the people who have upset me overnight by calling me at 3 in the morning. So yeah, so Moffman, that's another good one. I'm going to show you one of my favorites right now. This is from our local brewer, Brioso. They actually are a nationwide distributor. Even though they do have small batches, all of their stuff is really nice. But this one is one of my favorites. All of the coffees are my favorites. I will change my mind on a day-to-day. My favorite brewing method is actually probably the French press. So, but I'm slowly being won over by the pour over, which is what we're going to do tonight. So, but this one is a Mexican Chiapas Mayan harvest. Now, it smells so good, fresh out of the bag. A lot of people get confused when they order coffees from Brioso because they sound like they're flavored coffees. For example, this one says it has orange bitters, toasted pecan, cherry, and velvet body. That sounds like a flavored coffee, but it's not. It's very similar to like the way people describe wines when they talk about it being oaky or smoky or fruit forward. That's what they mean. It's the natural essences from the roasting being brought out. So yeah. Rand Can Cook has shared that he likes his coffee in the morning in front of the fireplace. I love that too. One of the things that I had wanted to do for tonight's live stream was actually to just go outside and sit by the fire pit with the coffee, but it is pouring, absolutely drenching, and we don't have a patio cover at this point in time. So, hi Susan, and Karen has joined us. So I see the chat is flowing. So, but so that's one of the things to know about Brioso. And sorry, I keep smelling it because it's so good. But so there's this one, the Mexican blend, and that's what I have for tonight. Now, just so you know, I would always tell you when you get your whole bean coffee, I didn't want to grind here because it's super loud. And I know eventually we'll do things that are super loud because we might maybe make a creamy ice cream together or blend up something fun in the Vitamix, but why torture you guys? So a few minutes ago, I was upstairs and I ground my coffee, and it's this one right here. That's what I wanted for tonight. This is actually a lighter roast, which sounds a little bit crazy. So, yeah, well, blasphemy happens once in a while. Actually, a lot of my favorite coffee beans, I see Two Crazy Ketos has asked about what locale I think the best coffee beans are. I will tell you that if I'm just doing regular drip coffee, I'm happy with a good Colombian blend. But if I am going with a super strong Turkish coffee like an Ibrik, then I actually do prefer something from Saudi Arabia. I think that is where that super, it's not bitter, but although it easily could go there, but it is a very strong, I don't want to say meaty because that's not the right word, but it's teetering on that bitter flavor, but it's not actually bitter. It's just super, super strong and dark. A very heavy sort of feel to it. And honestly, I kind of wish that I had my Ibrik down here because that would be a good thing, although I kind of do want to sleep tonight, and it's a super strong. So Friend Can Cook mentions that his wife likes being woken up to the smell of fresh brewed coffee. I think that is great, and yep, I definitely, I also love that. It's one of the things that I really love is waking up with a nice coffee or an espresso brought to me. It's a good way to start the day. And then this one is also from Brioso. They call this one their bakery blend, and it's got a nice buttery sort of nut flavory to it. It's really nice. I call this, even though it's called breakfast blend, I don't know who decided that, but I think this is an afternoon coffee. It's a little bit lighter. It's not gonna punch you in the face, but it does have that kind of nuttiness to it that you get from like a pecan type coffee. It's really nice. I see Shauna mentioning Juan Valdez as a picky. I remember those commercials, and I'll just I know I say there's no wrong way to enjoy coffee and coffee that you that, but I will say that the coffees that tout Juan Valdez, it's not actually very good coffee. It's very low quality and gets the bitters really super easy. But they do have the best ad campaigns. So. And the warden mentions fresh coffee and sizzling bacon. You're right. That is an awesome way to start the morning. Yep. Saudi Arabian coffee is super strong. So now, just to talk about that a little bit, because I've brought up the Saudi Arabian coffee, even though that wasn't something I planned to really talk about tonight. I am going to talk about it just a smidge because it is actually the precursor to them all. The Turkish coffee is, I don't know why I have my headphones in like I'm listening to something, but it is the original coffee. Boiling your coffee in a teeny tiny pot and super strong, giving it a stir. That is, it's the first coffee. And it's still done today. It's gotten a lot, it can be as simple as you want. If you have a little saucepan, you can make a Turkish coffee. So you don't have to have fancy equipment, although I like my fancy equipment, as you can tell. After Turkish coffee, that's when percolators were developed, and that was probably in around the 1800s. And I know I said French press was my favorite. French press is my favorite for immersion coffee. If we're talking boil coffee, we're going to go with the percolator. I love, and maybe this is because I've also enjoyed camping and camp cooking, and there's just something about being in the brisk cold air in the fall or at the break of winter. You're out there and you've got your campfire going and some stuff out there and the cast iron. Man, the percolated coffee is it just hits the spot. Now, I will say, while I love percolated coffee at home, I'm not going to choose it very often because I have like fast and dirty and I need my coffee right now and bougie coffee. So the percolator doesn't seem to hit it at home very often, even though it's great. Now, I do actually own 2 percolators. I have this small old camp one, and percolators have multiple pieces to them. They have the drop post. When you put this, you pour your water in, you put in your drop post, and what it will do is as it heats, the water draws up through the post, and your coffee goes in this little piece here. So your percolator coffee, just so you know, it's like your standard drip coffee maker as far as your coffee ratios. It's a tablespoon of ground coffee per cup of coffee. But it goes in here. This goes right on top of the post, and it's always a little bit of fiddling about. And you get that in there, and you cover it with a little lid, and it drops in there, and you're going to put, you'll have your water in there, and it actually goes direct onto the flame, onto your source, and you heat it up almost to boiling. Some of the things and the complaints you hear about the percolated coffee, awesome, thank you for reminding people to like it. That helps a lot. So, but one of the things that happens with the percolated coffee is that people complain about the grinds in it. And a lot of people often say it is because that it tastes too burnt or bitter. Burnt and bitter is exactly why percolated coffee is not as popular as it maybe could be, but it is absolutely a symptom of being over boiled. One thing about this is you have to do everything by hearing because the top is solid. There's no little glass and a notifier, but percolated coffee you have to pay attention to. In fact, except for your electric drip coffees, when you make coffee, you have to pay attention to it. So I see Mary T mentioning about the black coffee, the perch coffee at home. Yep, always a percolator on the stove. That was the way a lot of them go. So, but the other thing is, not washing the coffee pot. That is such a pet peeve of mine, but it is such a controversy. You will see so many people who will tell you, no, don't, that's the flavor. Not for me. I like a squeaky clean coffee pot. And a pro tip about that is many coffee pots are either glass or some steel or metal or aluminum. And the best thing you can do, which by the way, I'll talk about why I have my thermo flask here as well soon, but the best way to get those good and clean are dental tabs. You throw a dental tab in with some warm water overnight, and the next thing so the next morning, then you give it a good wash and you air dry it out, and that will help keep it clean. Sometimes if you have a lot of the oil residue, you need to give it a good wipe with a cotton cloth to get the rest of it out of there. Yeah, Mary mentions that there's no burnt or bitter taste if you perk it right, and that's correct. You will get grinds in there. That's inevitable, but once you take it off the heat, if you just let it settle a bit and you pour carefully, you're definitely going to reduce the sediment in your coffee. So let's see. Jen mentions that she's new to coffee and that she doesn't really care for the way it tastes. It's a light and acidic. She doesn't like the stuff that tastes light and acidic. She likes the deeper roast and not really sure what brands to look for. So unfortunately, I'm going to tell you that the best thing that you can do is go to local roasting coffee shops. Tell them exactly what you just said here about not liking light and acidic, but liking a softer, dark, deep roast so that you get that kind of flavor. Let them know that you want something more on the nutty side and less on the tart side, and they will help you with something like that. they will give you recommendations, and that'll help lead you towards things that help out with that. So, so can you open upstairs so that it doesn't make a lot of noise? Best Companion has just come down with something from Amazon, and it's going to open the package up, so we have it here in a few minutes. So yeah, local roasters will tell you what to get. There's and I will tell you that if you do like a deep nutty sort of flavor, you might actually venture into the world of espressos. Espressos are not supposed to be strong and bitter. They are supposed to be very, very smooth. Usually when they get the bitter taste to them, it's because the barista has over extracted. It's also something that's very easy to do at home. Over extraction is so painfully easy. On the percolators, this one is also great, and it has the little glass knob on top. It's nice because you can actually see the little burbles as opposed to trying to judge it by your audio. When you see commercials on TV and they talk about percolating, you always see it like bubbling all like crazy and filling up here in the top with all the little bubbles and brown coffee. And all I can tell you is that is the wrong way to percolate. It is absolutely no bueno. That is just terrible. I mean, unless you like burnt. So the reason I say that is because when you perk your coffee, it really should come to a boil just enough where you hear that first little blurp. And once you hear that, you immediately need to turn your heat way down. And you should only hear perks every 2 to 3 seconds. 2 to 3 seconds, that's it. Okay, just set it right here, please. Thank you so much for your helping. But that's all. So that's really, if it's percolating and you're hearing burp, 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 it's not going to be a good coffee, and there's no real saving it. But I think what we'll do is maybe a couple live streams down the road, we will we'll do a whole thing about percolated coffee, because I could take up, in fact, maybe each one of these weeks we'll do a different type of coffee, and I think that might be nice. And then what we could do is we'll have 1 cup and 1 type of brew, and maybe if you guys suggest a topic near the end of the stream each week, we can talk about that topic as well. Hi Rhonda, it's good to see you, and Defense Wiz. So nice to see Paul, and goodness, so many people joining this evening. It's really nice. I see a lot of comments about an activity at KPL, and yeah. And Shauna mentions, yes, that all the percolating and bubbling is really only good for the commercials, and that's very true. So let's see, I kind of lost my space for a minute. Give me 1 second to catch up. Yep. So, and I see that Caboodle Brie, or no, Caboodle Bry. I don't know why. See, they made that joke so many times. Now it's sticking. Caboodle Bry has mentioned that decaf is water lying about being coffee. So, as much as I'm not the biggest decaf fan, I will tell you, I'm not anti-decaf. There's a shocker. But we'll talk about why in a little bit. So, and we will definitely talk about that. Okay, here, let's see. We've got a little bit of back and forth conversation. Decaf coffees like bell peppers is what Renee says. And I think, that's fair because it has its place. It's just maybe not like the most exciting of the things ever. And And Karen mentions that without decaf, if they have a caffeinated coffee too late, that it disrupts their sleep, and that can absolutely be a thing if you haven't been a hardcore coffee drinker for most of your life. So I will tell you. Well, see, I got lost. This is why I keep a little note here to remind me to kind of at least attempt to keep on track. So Turkish coffee, the original coffee, then came the percolator. I have made a Dalgona coffee, and I actually, Jen Delaney asked if I have ever made a Dalgona coffee, and I did, and it actually wasn't, it was okay. I didn't really care for all the milk. I actually did try it several days in a row to get it right, and I found that while I wanted to use my liquid sweetener, it actually worked the best with the confectioner's Lakanto. And when I say confectioner's Lakanto, I mean I bought my bag of the Lakanto monk fruit erythritol blend and I ground it into powder. And that was really what worked best. The liquid actually somehow impeded the viscosity of the foam from the Dalgona coffee. So that was kind of a bummer. Actually, I haven't. I don't use the baking soda and water to clean my pot because the dental tabs are so convenient and efficient. However, I do know that my grandma did, and it was always fine too. We never had like a lot of big coffee residue or staining in the pots. So, back on a little bit of history and just for some funsy stuff here. After percolated, that's when we get into, I know it seems like we should say French press, but actually no, the next thing is the trendy pour over. And it's probably good that we have this conversation because I actually would like to start my coffee now. And to do that, I have to heat up coffee. This is a water kettle. This is not a coffee pot. This is strictly for the heating of water. And I love this one because it has a little thermometer on top. And I know you can't see it, but that means this kettle is good for all kinds of things, especially if you have temperamental teas that need certain ranges of temperature for brewing. You can control that. It's also metal, which means you can take it with you. Just set it right here, please. And I'll take that cup. Magic hands up from off the side, giving us more things. So anyways, this is a gooseneck, and the reason you want a gooseneck kettle, not that you can't use your electric kettle with the regular spout or anything like that, and they do make electric goosenecks, but the reason you want this is for the control of the pour. So I actually, ahead of time, pre-measured the amount of water I need for my pot, and I'm going to throw this on. I have, just so you know, my 1-burner camp stove. Bring that over. It's just a little butane burner, and those are great. If you were at KPL, you saw me post pictures making my little mocha pots or my coffee because I wasn't trusting that the hotel would be able to caffeinate me sufficiently with their limited time drip coffee. So let me just start this up and put that on. I actually am just gonna let that water eventually come to a boil. But yeah, so the cool thing is about the way this came about in about the 1900s. Let me check some comments first, and then I'll get back on my little soapbox coffee here. Oh, cool. I'm glad to hear about the calf. Karen was answering about their calves. And let's see. A good evenings. Okay, more conversation back and forth. So yeah, if you haven't tried the pour over, so Rhonda mentions that she's never tried the pour over and wants to know why. I will tell you why. It is an exquisitely smooth cup of coffee. It is a glorious drink. And this was the next in the line after the percolator. And you will be excited to hear, well, I'm excited to talk about this part. So in the early 1900s, there was a woman named Emily, and like many people today, Emily did not like that their percolated coffee often got over percolated and was bitter, and also that there was so much sediment in her coffee. So Emily, being a very inventive individual, took to trying new things, and she used blotting paper and I kid you not, a tin can that she punched a hole in with a nail, and perfected this method that we now know as the pour over. Now, you might wonder why I think that's so groovy. We'll tell you that woman, Emily, is Emily Melita. You might, if you are a coffee person, recognize the name Melita. They are now the industry standard for paper coffee filters. So, yeah, that is how the longevity her product has been. So, and I see that the warden states that they gave up their Keurig for a pour over and use an espresso for stronger cups. So, yep. And oh wow, that sounds super cool. Susan B mentions that they've had a pour over that their son made, and but still Susan still drinks drip coffee. Can I tell you? Listen, I have all of this super bougie coffee stuff, and I still drink drip coffee, so that's fine. There is nothing wrong with drip coffee, and anyone who says otherwise doesn't know what they're talking about. It's a different, and it's very smooth. Drip coffee is very smooth. It doesn't overbrew. It's a lot lighter than some of your other beverages. So yeah, so Amelie in the 1900s developed this coffee can with the nail hole and the blotter paper, and developed that. And so it wasn't until the 1930s though when Melita developed the actual cone that we see today. But that cone and that coffee and that pour over led to sort of like a little coffee revolution. It was I need a drink of water, just a moment. Because it was very innovative, it was less ground fill, and the smoothness that came from the pour over through the paper was something that people hadn't experienced before. And yeah, thanks. And Two Crazy Ketos mentions that they love the creativity, and I agree. I think that was just great. And way back then, you know, it was a woman, and women were not as given as much license to be as creative as so many of the amazing ones were. So I think it was just fantastic. Oh, so Shauna asked who came up with folding one edge on the bottom of the cone, and so that is still from Melita. And you hear that my water is done, so I'm just going to turn that off real quick. Now, I'm going to disrupt the conversation so I can tell you about my personal brew here. One thing you want to do with pour overs is pre-warm your vessel, and I did that already. I did that before we came down, so it's nice and warm. And you want that just because it kind of accelerates the brewing. And I'm just going to dump that because that's not water we're using for the brewing. I have a metal filter, but we'll talk about other filters in a minute. And I have my 30 grams of coffee because this is a 4-cup coffee maker. And I just pour that right into my filter. Oh God, it smells so good because I just ground it. I ground it like literally 5 minutes before I came down. Oh, it is just That is always the best smell to me. Now, you can use whatever grind you really want, but I will tell you that the recommended grind for pour over coffee is a coarse grind. And I know you can't see it on my camera. We'll work on technology, but it should be kind of like the, I'm going to go with like sugar crystals. And if you haven't had sugar in so long, you forgot what that is, think monk fruit crystals. But once you have your coffee in your filter, here's the fun part of the pour over. Something that a lot of people don't know. You want to pour relatively slow at first, and only enough to, this is what we call wetting. You're wetting the grounds, and then you will recognize this term from all our talk about gelatin and keto chow. You bloom the coffee. It's dripping, that's fine. It's going to, but you don't want to do a whole lot. We're actually going to pause for a second on that and let the coffee all moisturize through. You just want to give it like a minute to do that. Oh, and I'm just gonna take that smell in. So let's see where we are. Yeah, I'll show you the mocha pot a little bit later if we get to it. I don't know. Like I said, I kind of thought that we might just we might take several weeks and go through, and we'll pick a couple topics. We'll do one coffee and then another topic, but today it's all coffee all the time. So yeah, that's it. This is called wetting the grounds, and then the minute that you wait, it's blooming. And once you see that it sort of looks like it's going to dry out again, you know, like I can touch the top. I really wish that I had a little bit better camera so I could show you, but it's not coming up on my finger, but it is not exactly looking super wet. It just looks like if you ever had like fresh soil down and the first rain comes and then and it all sinks in and then the top looks a little bit moist but also still kind of wafery. That's where you are. Now, we'll talk about cold press coffee in a little bit. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead now and pour my water. And it takes a couple moments to get it all in there. You have to pause periodically because the water rises up and you don't want to overflow. Just want to keep a nice steady, and you do want to move it around so that you don't dig a hole through the coffee. And that's another reason for the gooseneck, like I said, that control. My table's not level, so I had to move it a little bit. But you just keep moving it in that nice little circular motion. So like I said, it's not exactly a zero effort, but it's really not that bad. And you can see I'm already up to 2 cups. Now, give it a pause to drip through a little bit. While I'm doing this, I will tell you some other things about that. Let's see if I've got anything. So let's see, we did percolator and we're working on pour over. So, and someone mentioned about cold brew press. I don't do any pressing for cold brew, but I think you will notice that I have a real love for fun beakers and filters and things. This is a cold brew device. This beaker was made by a company. They put it out on Kickstarter, and then their design got stolen, so you could buy it real cheap on there. But it has the fine mesh, and basically you use your coarse grinds. You don't want fine grinds in there. And all you do is I wish I had thought to bring ice water down here, because I could have put this in for the morning, but that's okay. Anyways, you put your coffee right into there. and then you pour the water over it, and you cap it and you throw it in your fridge. And I say you need to leave it 24 to 48 hours for it to get really good. The sediment will lay to the bottom, and that is all there is to cold brew. I don't care for press. I feel that pressing for cold brew really brings out the bitters. That is an individual choice, though. Maybe you like that. It's just not for me. So. Yes, well, okay, so Renee mentions they got some free cold press bagged with an ATV purpose. Honestly, I don't know. It's not my, it's actually, Renee was gonna say it's not my cup of tea, but really what it is it's not my cup of coffee. Cold press, I would go ahead and actually just use it in a regular, the last drops of my water. I would just use it in a regular cold brew and let it go right over there. Yep. So this is technically, yeah, you're right. 1 cup in terms of coffee. For some reason, coffee comes in small little cups, and there are some reasons for that. But yes, I am also a larger cup drinker. This is technically 4 cups, but yeah, it won't last, and it won't remain 4 cups. So, but that is all there is to the pour over coffee. Now that is actually the coffee I'm going to drink, and I have a couple of special things here. These are cups for coffee. This is a thick-walled ceramic, basically your typical coffee cup. This is a cappuccino size by Italy. They are a large-scale commercial industrial coffee maker, but high quality. And this is basically what is considered your average cup size. An average cup is 6 ounces, sometimes 4, depending on who and which barista and what methodology they're using. So this is fine when you have the thick-walled ceramic. It's nice because while it does get warm, it's usually not so hot that you can't touch it. So that's just your standard. Your standard ceramic cups usually have handles. If they don't have handles, they can sometimes, if they're too thin, you can burn yourself on them, because hot brewed coffee almost always, not every time, uses boiling water, so it's very hot. Let's see. Mary T mentions having a nice cup of coffee in Disneyland. So, I think that's true. I think that Disneyland actually, even though it's a big commercial industry, actually has some really nice things. Like a lot of their restaurants are pretty good. And yeah, you're right. Their coffee is usually, they've got a wide variety and it's pretty good. Before I pour into it, I'm going to talk to you about these cups. These are double wall insulated glass. Now, they are fragile, so these aren't the cups that you take with you on vacation. But these kind of cups are good for both cold and hot beverages. And the reason why is they keep the actual liquid away from the walls. And this will, if you have cold, it will prevent the condensation. And if you have hot, it also protects your hands and also still insulates and holds the heat into the coffee. So it can release some of the steam to make it drinkable up from the top, but from the sides you're still going to retain, and so it won't cool down as fast as regular coffee mugs. So I'm going to go ahead and pour my cup here. I just moved the filter out of the way a little bit. And there is my coffee. Now, I don't want this to necessarily cool down too fast. I want to keep it for, later. And let me just put this in my little discardy bowl. Sorry about that. But there is why you bring your insulated thermo flask, which, by the way, I did pre-warm up earlier, but I emptied it out, so it's good and nice in there. But you pour your coffee off, and then it stays at temperature. I will tell you, you always need an insulated thermos. Oh, and Too Crazy Coffee mentions that that diner coffee is always so good. You're right. There is something about a diner coffee that is just incredible. Now, I'm probably going to pour myself another cup because I took the small one just for right now. But I pour it off into my thermos, but you still really can't see it. But you can sort of see how the walls are away and then the liquid is suspended in the middle. So that is really where we're at. So that's your pour over coffee. So I just took a drink of water, and that's something to mention too. Another thing that goes weirdly well with coffee is that you do want the occasional sip of water. It's a palate cleanser, and especially if you're having maybe a couple different roasts, or you're having an espresso and then maybe another beverage, or you're having a dark roast coffee, or if you're having a breakfast, a sip of water in between kind of cleanses your palate and gets it prepared for the coffee. The other thing that is, and I know I'm sorry for those of you who are not living wildly right now, but coffee pairs well with a lot of things. Too Crazy Keto asks when I started drinking coffee. Yes, I grew up drinking coffee. It's actually, coffees are very popular in Mexican families, and that is where the mocha pot comes in. We not only do we start drinking our coffee early, we are hardcore right from the start. This is a mocha pot. It's sort of like, it's not quite espresso, but it's more than coffee. You can use espresso grind in it, but if you aren't using a pre-ground espresso already and you have your burr grinder, you can take it just a little bit lighter than the espresso grind and it will be perfection. It's sort of like a hybrid between an infusion coffee and a percolated coffee, because your water goes down in the chamber. Actually, I would say maybe between a siphon and your percolated. It goes down in the chamber, your coffee goes up here in the little filter, and then you put the top on, and when you put it directly over the heat, it brings the water up, and the very second you hear it bubble, you immediately take it off the heat and you put it under cold water in the sink, and that cools it all down. Not completely, because it's still hot. And what will happen is if you ever lift the lid and you watch, there's like a couple little holes up at the top, and it actually, the pressure from the hot water underneath pushes it up through that little funnel and out in here for the brew. So it's a really spectacular cup. It does get, I'm sure there is rattles. We might have a fan noise. Actually, our HVAC might be running because the fan goes on all day, and I'm in the basement because it's the nicest place for a giant table full of my crap. So that's the mocha pot, and we'll do a whole mocha pot episode sometime. So, but coffee. goes really well paired with the same kind of things. I know I'm bringing up the wine again. Same kind of things that wine goes with. You can have a coffee and cheese course. You can have a coffee, and in this case tonight, I have a dark chocolate. So a dark chocolate with the coffee is sublime. Also, I don't know how I feel about these because they're sweeter than I thought, but I did pour out a couple of the cocoa coated almonds from Keto Farms to try out. But there's nothing wrong with the sweet flavor, but it's not my favorite. I would have liked if they said cocoa dusted that it had had just that deep dark cocoa dusting on it, and it had been a bit stronger instead of more candified. Uh, no, no, fan noise is definitely me. Like I said, I'm trying, and I just haven't found the sweet spot yet. I also think that because I'm just using my cheap generic little webcam, we might actually need to buy like a real camera and get and learn how to use it. So now, uh, last but not least, well, actually it's not last. I actually do have more. By the way, I mentioned the very first coffee, the 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 Turkish coffee. This is the little Turkish coffee pot and a little cute vintage spoon because when you put your coffee in there, you give it a stir. Like I said, I think that is definitely a whole episode because that is a special kind of coffee. I see that OP has mentioned that they love cardamom, a little pinch of cardamom. That goes right back into the Turkish coffees. I love it in regular coffee too, but one of the things that really makes Turkish coffee spectacular is a little pinch of spice in it, whether it's a cinnamon or cardamom or a five spice. That little pinch really sets it off. The other thing that if you go someplace and you order a Turkish coffee, you really need to talk to them because some places will sweeten it. That is a very traditional thing to do with Turkish coffee. So you definitely want to make sure that you always clarify that you just want it straight up. I will say that I don't mind a sweet in my coffee once in a while, especially in a Turkish coffee. But I found the most awesome thing by Whole Earth. I know you can't see it. That's such a shame. But I'm trying to make sure I catch the chats, and I don't quite have it done. Oh, but I see someone mentioning the butter maple pecan brick. Oh, I might have to try that tomorrow. That sounds amazing. Anyways, Whole Earth makes a stevia leaf and monk fruit cube. So it's sort of like, let me see if I can get one. They made it like a sugar cube. Let me see. I can't quite get it. There we go. So yeah, actually like a sugar cube. So if you make something like a Turkish coffee, or if you want that old-fashioned sugar in the bottom, or like they do in some cocktails, you can actually, these are great. And just so you know, like, even though they're sugar cube shaped, all they are, it's erythritol, stevia leaf extract, natural flavors, and monk fruit extract. So seriously, there is nothing terrible or bad about it. It is 1 carb per cube, but that 1 carb is the erythritol. So, I really find that for a Turkish coffee, it is 100% worth it. I stir it up, I make my Turkish coffee, and I put the cube right in the bottom of my glass before I pour it in. And it is a delight. So, I see a few people mentioning the Turkish coffee, and I saw 2 Crazy Ketos say they'd like to learn to make a Turkish coffee. Is that what you guys want to do next week? Do you want to do a Turkish coffee? If yes, just say so in the chat, and because I was thinking of doing French press, but I am so down for the Turkish coffee. That's also, we'll do all of the coffees. But so yeah, so the dark chocolate though with the coffee is spectacular. Hmm. The cubes, it's Whole Earth brand. Maybe I'll try and post a picture later because I can get a better picture, whereas my webcam is not that great. So, yep. Lots of, well, I wouldn't say lots, but I see a few comments about the cinnamon. And cinnamon is a very traditional thing to add to coffee. I mentioned, being Mexican and my family's from Mexico. And honestly, I grew up with that, with the mocha pot, and we put cinnamon in that all the time. We put cinnamon in hot chocolate too. Well, we put cinnamon in a lot of things. It's a really normal flavor for us. And so pretty much if something has cinnamon in it, it's very nostalgic for me. Actually, I probably will. I will go live on Sunday night, even though it's Halloween. I don't know how it'll be because I will be freezing on my front porch for the trick-or-treaters, but I think that sounds like fun. We can just sit and chat. We can make a Turkish coffee and enjoy Halloween. I can totally do a Turkish coffee right outside, so no problem. So, yeah. All right, then we'll do it. We'll do Turkish coffee and Halloween next week. Maybe we'll see some real cute kids and scare them a lot. Because that's just my style. Mm. And Shauna mentions that she can she can drink coffee right up to bedtime and go right to sleep. And that's me too. You become accustomed to it. If you are a long-term coffee drinker, you can absolutely, you become adjusted to it. And so it doesn't disrupt your sleep as much. So yeah, I will. Let's see, what have I missed so far? Oh yeah, okay. So I'm going to talk about the French press. So yep, more comments about not being held awake by the coffee at night. And yeah, it definitely is something that happens. Now, it's not without its benefits though, and it does still give you energy. It's actually one of the health benefits for coffee. And so if you are someone who does exercise, or if you are going to take a test or something like that, and you need to stimulate your body and your mind, about 30 minutes before that activity is when you should have the coffee. So that's something to just keep in mind. There's a delay. It's not like coffee and boom. There's that delay. They also tell you a lot of times that if you drink a cup of coffee and then you take like that 15-minute power nap, that you'll really get that boost from it, that mental clarity. So there's something interesting in the timing of that, and there are a bunch of studies out right now where they're trying to figure out some of the details about that. So it should be very interesting to hear. I'm going to go back to the French press, and then we'll come back to health benefits. French press. So depending on which camp you are in on coffee, so many people will argue with you to tell you that French press is the best coffee ever. I'm an old-fashioned percolated coffee kind of lover. Very close on the pour over. I have a fancy pants device to show you. Also solidly in the running for best coffee for me. French press for me is a treat coffee. It is so easy to screw it up. French press coffee requires a lot of attention. If you don't pay attention to it, you will screw it up. Um, just, French press coffee, again, you're going to go with that coarse grind. It goes right in the bottom. You're going to pour your water right into it. You put, basically, if you put in your, let's say we're doing 4 cups, French presses is like a 1 to 12 ratio. So, if you have 30 grams coffee, you're going to have 350 grams of water. I think pour over is really popular again right now. I think that the next big trend, though, is going to be one I'll show you in a little bit. Uh, because it is kind of growing in popularity again. I think basically what happens is the coffee kind of goes and comes in trends depending on what's good with your baristas and where equipment starts getting available. And Paul mentions that he feels like he's maybe the only person in the world that ever got into French press. So French press is its own beast. Now, I will tell you, there's not without its merits. It is a delicious cup of coffee. However, it is the one brew of coffee that there is a study where it shows that it might not be in your best interest to drink only French press coffee all the time. They actually had a good study that came out with a couple 100,000 people, so it wasn't a small study, where if you drank 5 or more cups, and those cups that they are talking about are your traditional 4-ounce cup of coffee, so we're really not talking a lot of coffee, might increase your LDL. And that is because it's unfiltered, and it does not remove as much as the capistrol and shoot. The word is so hard for me to remember how to say it. The Calwahol. Those are 2 things that are in the coffee. I will tell you that is a benefit of the pour over, is that it is heavily filtered. Same thing for one of the other coffees we're going to bring. So basically you've got percolated, which is boil coffee. Mocha pot is a combination. French pressed is an infusion coffee, and pour over and siphons are diffusion coffees. So lots of big fancy words. You won't remember it unless you start looking it up. Yeah, I would love a nice barista, so that would be very nice. And Renee mentions they won't turn down any coffee. That's me. You know what? I'll be honest. If it's a really crappy cup of coffee and someone went through all the trouble to make it, I'm still gonna love it. I will still love it. You know what? Even if I accidentally have overbittered and overbrewed my coffee, I still like it and I still drink it. And I am not a person who's like too over picky, even though I might seem like it. I love my coffee 100%. So, but yeah, so that's a weird thing. I will tell you though that they did mention in that study that even unfiltered coffee seems to be somewhat anti-inflammatory, and that's across the board in coffee studies. Anti-inflammatory. Now, French press just likes to be controversial 100% all the way, all the time. Not only does it have this study about the cholesterol and the raising of your LDL, and honestly, I'm going to say, they said it might raise it like 11 points. I honestly don't know if I feel like that's something I give a crap about. But I mean, we know that there's a lot of myths about cholesterol, and we know that not everything that they perpetuate about cholesterol is true and accurate. But also, because I like such a wide variety of coffee, I don't need to drink more than 4 cups of French press coffee in a day. But ever controversial, that was not enough for French presses to be controversial about. They also have two types of French press, your metal and your glass. So what's the difference? I will tell you that a lot of the difference is mental, but there are people who will tell you that when they use the metal French press, that it doesn't taste right. Bull hockey. It tastes fine. There's no real difference. It is psychological. Now, here is where I personally feel is the actual difference. When I go on vacation somewhere, this can go in my suitcase. This absolutely cannot. That is a good way to have a broken glass in your suitcase. So that's the real difference. Now, yeah, right there. And then the other difference is coffee is an experience. Good coffee is an experience, and quite frankly, the glass, I'm sorry, it's just so beautiful. It's lovely, and you watch it and you see it brew and develop. And if you are a plunger, and when you push it down in, it's just something lovely to watch. So now, important things that you need to know about the French press, just like everything else, it's super easy to do wrong. You know that people complain about French press coffee, and one of the complaints it was my Colonel Sherman reference, bull hockey. So yeah, please tell me that you all know who Colonel Sherman is. But so oh, yeah, well, oh, so it's very picky, and it's super easy with the pressing to over extract the coffee. And that is why it gets bitter. But honestly, who complains that it's too flavorful? What does that even mean? I'm sorry, I don't like this coffee. It tastes too good. What? No, that's a crazy thing to say. So I don't even know what that means, and I don't understand when people say it. I actually think what it is that they are very used to the light roast in the drip coffee, and so they don't know they think that when they have a French press and that's super bold, that they don't know. All right, you're right, it is horse hockey, whatever. So anyways, I think they just don't know differently yet. And I think over time you come around to that. But if you look around for French press techniques, a traditional technique is, of course, once you have your coffee and you pour it in here, you put in if you put in 30 grams of coffee, the first thing you're going to do is exactly what I did with the pour over, is you're going to put about 60 grams of water in there and let it go for just a minute and bloom. Then you slowly add the rest of your coffee and you cover it up. You do not plunge right away. This is like the most important thing. People don't know how much attention you have to pay to French press. You need to put a timer. I use a timer, which, by the way, this is an awesome little timer. It's electric and it looks like a little hourglass. But French press coffee, 4 minutes. Do not go over 4 minutes or you will have the bitters. It will be no longer the most delightful, strong, powerful coffee in the world. It will be a sour, bitter, nasty coffee. 4 minutes. That is it. And at 4 minutes, this is where you have your decision to make. You can take the lid off and scoop out the foam on top, cover it back up, and pour your coffee. Or you can plunge it down and clear your grounds that way. Give it a second and then let it go. Right? Two Crazy Ketos cracked a joke and says, "Can you take the coffee back and make it worse, please?" Right. It's too flavorful. I don't understand that complaint. That is the weirdest thing I've ever heard, and yet it's really common. So whatever. So we'll do a whole episode on French press and get all excited about it because it is a really great cup of coffee. And I'll just mention, by the way, this brand that I have for several things, I think well, actually, most of my stuff came from them, not the cold brew, is Coffee Gator. I'm kind of talking to them like, I'm like, listen, I'm a long time customer. I got like 2 or 3 of your mocha pots and everything else. And I actually told them that I lost one of my French presses because I don't know if it busted and somebody hit it and didn't tell me at like a party, or if it got lost in going to an event or what. But I was like, listen, but I'm doing this live stream. Can you send me one, extra fast? And they said, oh, let us send you a few things. We'll get you all hooked up, Meitreya. We love you. Okay. So they really went out of their way, and not only did they get me stuff, they got me all kinds of amazing stuff. So, and they're not a sponsor, so I don't have to shill for them. They didn't ask for anything like that. But I did tell them I'd like to talk about a discount code for us because they have a lot of good stuff. 50-50 if they'll do that or not. It's not something they normally do, so we'll see. But one of the things we'll do French press. Where am I? I lost track. Okay. One of the ultra cool things. How much fun is this? It's an old school siphon pot. Well, this one's not that old school. It's been modernized. But is this not so much fun? How do you not love something so sciencey? I cannot wait to do a whole episode on siphon so that we can use this one. This is a Japanese version. And we'll bring out a fancy pants Belgian version. It's super cool. Yeah, it's easy to be impatient with some of these coffees because it's not as convenient as who tied this? So anyway, it's not as convenient, but these siphon pots, it's better actually to get a butane burner for it, but this one is an alcohol burner. You use denatured alcohol, which you just get at the hardware store. But and you just light it up, and what it does is you'll put your water in the bottom chamber and your coffee. Let me find these filters. These are so much fun. I just love them because they're fun, not Breaking Bad coffee is what Shauna says this is. So it comes with this little pad that you hook on to your filter. And the filter gets dropped right in here, vacuum sealed. Sorry, I have to fiddle with it just a smidge. Boy, I've really gotten it stuck in there. Well, I'm not going to mess with it too much right at the moment because it's vacuumed in, and I'm going to have to play with it a little to unstick it. That's the problem with these. They get stuck sometimes after being vacuumed, and let's see if we can loosen it. Let me take it out. I don't want to break my glass. There we go. Tighten it back down. So your water will go in this bottom chamber. You light it up. Your filter drops in, and it has like this little springy dealy bob. That's my technical term for it. And you mess with your filter. And your coffee will go up, but you see, and I know you don't see because my camera's not that great, but yeah, it goes through here, And initially, when you're just going to set it in there and not seal it while your water comes to temperature down here. And then once it starts coming up, you'll see even unsealed, it'll start the pressure builds and it starts coming up through the glass tube and into the filter and the coffee blooms. Once that happens, you tilt it over and it seals up, and suddenly it all sucks up in here. And once it sucks up, you let it steep for just a few minutes, and then you turn your heat off, and so the bottom chamber cools back down, and then the pressure comes down and the water comes back down through the tube and it refills the bottom chamber. It's so stinking cool. It's just, if nothing else, it's so cool to watch. But in addition to being super cool, it tastes amazing. So, yep. So I have seen a lot of, I've missed a bunch of comments because I got excited by the siphon. In my morning cup of coffee, I'm just going to tell you, it's the electric drip, because I need coffee and I'm often in a rush trying to get ready for work, and I have to check my emails and call this conference call, and I'm running up and down the stairs and making sure, and so I don't have time for my good coffee. It just needs to be coffee. So it's just your electric drip. This almond is growing on me. I didn't think I liked it at first. But now I think I do. Maybe I just needed to get further into the cup of coffee. I definitely didn't like it right out of the bag. So yeah, but definitely love that. The other one that's not down here is a Belgian siphon. So this one's Japanese, but Belgium and Germany originated the siphons, and oh my God, it is so cool. Like, it could even make a bad cup of coffee, but because it's so cool, I would still want to use it. But yeah, that's the main thing for this. I just think that they are so novel and fun to do, that is where I go. So your iBrick is your Turkish coffee, your French press, your siphon, cold brew, gooseneck water, percolator, mocha pot. I'm sure there are more, but that is a lot of coffee devices. So when I told you guys I was a big coffee nerd, I really was being very serious about it. And plus also I love gadgets. So OP says they're going to need a bigger kitchen if they keep watching. We also run out of space sometimes, and I just have to reorganize and move things around. I don't usually have everything out and scattered like this, so yeah, that would be harder. So that is pretty much everything for the actual coffee devices. But real quick, some little other things that you want to have if you really love coffee. Like I said, I already mentioned the timer. You definitely want some measuring spoons, tablespoon and teaspoon, for a variety of uses. I don't have it down here, but you need a grinder, and I recommend a burr grinder. You can get an electric grinder, which is nice because you can simply dial it in for the grind you want, or you can get a hand crank. Hand cranks are great too. Obviously, a regular spoon for the stirring if you like additives into your coffee. Weirdly, I like bamboo chopsticks for things where I'm going to do stirring, like although I have my little vintage spoon, but if you're doing your French press, before you seal it up, you give it a little stir. For a lot of coffees, that's what you do. You need to give it a little stir, and chopsticks are the ideal stirring vessel. Defense. Oh, Paul's being hilarious, saying goodnight to all my coffee pots. If you put stuff in your coffee, I like wood coffee sticks. I know that they make plastic ones and glass ones. This is like my compromise between the glass ones. I don't like the plastic ones because it's bad for the environment. And also, I don't know, they just feel cheap in my coffee to me. And that's just a personal weirdness. But these are great because they can go in the compost. So, or the bonfire or the fire pit. So we like these little bamboo ones. Plus they just work nice. They're very efficient. The other thing that I didn't bring down here, but if you are a keto friend of mine, is a scale. It sounds weird, but you want to weigh things because I keep talking about like having 30 grams of coffee. Yes, before I ground my coffee, and you weigh your whole beans. You weigh it in beans and then you grind. So you weigh 30 grams of whole bean coffee and then you grind it and then you take your coffee, your water after that. Um, so here we are. I'm just going to finish up here with a little bit about health benefits of coffee. So there have been a group of studies in the last eight or so years. Yeah, so Rhonda mentions that she has almost all of these gadgets except for the Breaking Bad chemistry and the pour over. But I highly recommend that you get a Siphon coffee maker. They are just the best. Yeah, well, and as Shauna mentions that she's not someone who weighs. But yeah, so honestly, for your drip electric, weighing is not as important. But for like your French press or your pour overs, you do want to weigh, and your siphons as well. Weighing is important. Back to the health benefits. So they've been doing these, it was actually 18 studies. I said 8, but it's actually 18 different studies all come together. They've got about 460,000 people in the studies. And this is the really super cool part. Out of that study, what they discovered is that people who have a singular cup of coffee a day have a 7% reduced risk of type 2 diabetes. So how cool is that? Because you know how awesome coffee goes with keto. People on keto, a large swath of us love coffee, and well, now you know why. It all goes together. It fits in with our protocol just like that. Other things is that they've discovered that people who have a cup of coffee a day, based on the trends, have had their depression reduced and are 50% less to have suicidal ideation. Now that doesn't mean it's zero, but that's actually pretty impressive. The other part of the coffee is that it has B2 and B5, our beloved magnesium, niacin, and potassium. So not a ton of it, not like as much as we need, but it does have electrolytes. So cool. Mm. I think I also tend to err on the side of a little more than recommended. So Renee was asking what other people use as far as measurements for their coffee, and that they also measure a little more. Paul mentions 3 scoops for 25 ounces of water. So a scoop is usually usually about right for depending if it's a official coffee scoop, it's 2 tablespoons. If it is a standard scoop for like baking or measuring, then those scoops are 1 tablespoon. So I think that's mainly the most of everything that I wanted to do for tonight and a single go. And I think that's a lot. Like we probably could have taken the first top part I did and spent the whole time on the pour over. I'm going to eat another one of these almonds because they are more appealing now than they were earlier. Mm. Now Mary mentions that she uses 5 rounded tablespoons ground for a 10-cup drip. So for me, that's actually a little light. But when you say rounded, depending on how rounded, it's probably about 1.5, almost 2 tablespoons. So probably about right, actually. Right on par with a industry standard. Oh, and Jerry says that a scoop is a chocolate peanut butter keto chow scoop. You know what? That would be some super strong coffee. That's too much even for me. So 50 Christmas bows. Shauna's tied 50 Christmas bows. I guess you do need coffee for that. Two crazy ketos mentions now let's discuss the health benefits for others in the house when they drink coffee. So I gotta laugh at that because yeah, it made me wonder because anytime I've had to not have coffee for a period of time, I do have the withdrawal and I do get very not real nice. And I even mentioned that joke, but it really wasn't that funny. But I went to work one day when I had to not have any caffeine because I was getting some tests done. And I don't know, I went to my doctor's appointment. I came back. I didn't take time to go and pick up coffee on the way. I was sitting at my desk and I'm sure I was muttering because I was in spreadsheets and suddenly my boss was just like standing there at my desk and he just like slid this cup of Starbucks at me and he's like, this for you. Or I would like you to drink that before we have our core visit this afternoon. And I was like, I don't even know what I said or if it was my face, but it was really appreciated, but also hilarious. It could be because he and I have worked together 9 or so years, so he also has a good sense of humor. So, but yeah. But now that we've hit 8 o'clock, I do think it's time to wrap it up. And I know Starbucks is not great for just plain old black coffee, but you take it when it's freebie and someone takes it and you have had no coffee, that's what it is. So I really thank everyone for showing up tonight. I really love seeing all your comments and talking, and I'm really excited to do this. Drop me a line and let me know if there's another topic you want to pair with the coffee, and we can, like I said, we'll do coffee. It sounds like next week is going to be Halloween and Turkish coffee, but if you have other things you want us to discuss, let me know. And we'll do that. We'll just pair it up. We'll do one coffee method and one topic that we want to discuss on Sundays. Sound good? And if not, a Snickers commercial moment. All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you for showing up. I'll talk to you guys later this week. And I will see you later. Bye.